Hello everyone. Razorblade Mango here. And today I just wanted to give my thoughts on one of the new games to come out this month, South of Midnight. This is the latest game from Compulsion Games, published by Xbox Game Studios. And this is the first game to come from Compulsion since being acquired by Xbox, what feels like ages ago. I think 2018 is when they got acquired by Xbox, so yeah, almost 7 years since then. Unfortunately, and I'll just get right into it, I greatly disliked South of Midnight. To me, this is one of the most frustrating games I've ever had to review on this channel, because from the moment this was announced a few years ago, I was hooked by it. I loved the art style. I loved the vibe it was going for. I loved the setting, this magical realism version of the Deep South. I thought all of that was cool as hell. I loved the things that the creative director was saying about how the setting was inspired by seeing weird things and the places he would explore while growing up in Mississippi. And that is the most positive stuff I can say about South of Midnight, because, and this is where my point of frustration comes in, is that South of Midnight has some of the most striking art direction and ambiance I've ever seen in a game. I think this game's art direction is magnificent. I think the soundtrack is very good. I think it runs extraordinarily well. It's optimized just beautifully. During the opening levels, there were multiple times where I just stopped and stared in awe at the scenery and the imagery multiple times, because this game really speaks to my tastes and aesthetics. You know, I don't have a personal connection to the setting or this culture, but this is what cool art does. Like, it can take something that is completely foreign to me and allow me to have some kind of personal connection to it, whether it's thematically, aesthetically, musically. And I think just from a sheer imagery standpoint, South of Midnight is, I'll come right out and say, I think it is a masterpiece visually. I love the stop motion aesthetic that it has. I never once felt the desire to turn it off, even though there's an option for that during the gameplay. I thought the lighting was extraordinary in certain situations. There was one scene where I was climbing this tree and I was overlooking this bayou as the sun was rising, and it was just awe-inspiring to look at this beautiful scenery laid out in front of me with the lighting just perfectly reflecting off of the water and the plants and the sunlight as it pierces through the trees. It was just immaculately designed. So gorgeous. And like I said, the music is really good. It has a few original songs with lyrics to them that some of them I think are great. And I love this focus on Southern mythology because, truth be told, I know nothing about it. And I find it to be just super imaginative and interesting in that regard. And I love what the game is trying to do visually and culturally and thematically and all that. But as a game, as something I sit at my computer and I have my controller in my hand and I play, it's incredibly generic and unimaginative and repetitive and shallow. And I'm so annoyed that South of Midnight isn't a movie that I can enjoy, that I don't have to actually physically interact with it as a video game. So much of this game's level design and game design is just generic and repetitive and unimaginative. Almost every level feels like it has the exact same structure when it isn't just this really short walking through an environment episode. Almost the exact same structure to each level. You fight arenas full of enemies. Then you do a platforming section. Then you go to another arena and fight enemies there. Then you do some more platforming. Then you come to the main area of the level and you fight in 3 or 4 slightly harder enemy arenas. Each arena in that group ends with a cutscene that details some element of the story that you're experiencing in this level. that ends in some tragic way. Then that once you get all of those bits of details for the tragic story, you have this laughable chase sequence, and then maybe a boss fight at the end. Rinse and repeat the entire 11 to 12 hour game that I went through. For the first half of this game, I was kind of more in the camp of, it's okay, it's not great, but the environment and the imagery is seeing me through. But by the second half of the game, especially the last third of it, I grew to find this experience just completely unenjoyable. Just the combat just feels stiff. Enemy variety is paltry. You defeat each type of enemy the exact same way. And there are some combat arenas where it was very obvious that little to no thought was given to the combination of enemies you would fight and how they would meaningfully challenge the player, especially towards the end. When you're dashing around the environment, it's like the camera doesn't know how to deal with it in certain instances, where especially if you're backed into a corner by an enemy, the camera will get stuck and you won't see what the hell you're doing. And then when you're trying to dodge out of the way of an attack, the enemy telegraphing sucks, so you never quite know exactly when the hit is coming, because almost each enemy has the exact same kind of structure to it. They all have that same unblockable attack that you have to get out of the way of, and then if it's the last enemy there, you're hitting it, and then if it decides to do an unblockable attack, you then have to kind of stand there and just wait for the enemy to do its wind-up attack, dodge out of the way, dodge back in, hit, it's dead. Exact same thing with every single enemy in this game. For about half the game, whenever I would see a clearly telegraphed combat arena, I would just groan out loud because I dreaded doing combat in this game. I just felt like it was such a giant waste of my time, and it was not fun, it was not mechanically satisfying, it was not deep. It's very telling that the game allows you to skip any combat encounter or boss you want. There's an option in the game to do this. That signals a lot to me when you give the player an option to skip about 50% of the game's gameplay. And what sucks is that there are some moments in the game that get very close to being great. Bosses in this game are mainly, they're okay. They're definitely the highlights of the experience, in my opinion, but most of them are just okay. The final boss fight is terrible. I'll get to that in a sec. But there's one boss fight that was the highlight of the game for me, where again, mechanically it's very shallow. It's not particularly inspired, but I really liked the way the song that plays during the fight was integrated into the fight itself, where it would introduce lyrics that would build to more intensity as it goes on. And there were parts of it where you would dodge the boss's attacks, and the boss would almost scream parts of the lyrics at you while they were attacking. And I really liked how the song connects to the character and their little arc in the game. It felt like a really inspired moment, and it could have been fantastic. But again, the stiff combat and the basic bitch boss design just undercut a lot of the power that fight could have had. And the final boss, like I said, so this final boss in the game, so you have 3 bosses before this point that are, again, mechanically not interesting, but at least visually, song-wise, they definitely are a standout compared to the rest of the game. So what does this game decide to do for its final boss? Just fight 4 waves of the same mob enemies you've been fighting the entire game, except now there's a big purple mist monster occasionally doing AoE attacks at you. Wow! How inspired! 4 waves of the same shit enemies I've been fighting this whole game. Amazing. And I want to hone in on one moment in particular, because I think it defines this game. It's the moment I keep thinking about in my head. There is one bit in one of the opening levels that has you following the ghosts of runaway slaves, guided by one of the main character's ancestors to freedom. You know, historically very significant moment, but it's this supernatural moment that has this serious historical weight. Up until the point where the ghost ancestor looks at the slaves that she's guiding to freedom and then says something like, "Follow me to freedom," and then wall runs on a wall. This person that is trying to guide these slaves to freedom starts wall running like she's a Titanfall pilot. And it made me laugh out loud. It's meant to be this serious, emotional moment, and I burst out laughing. And I think that moment, a lot of what that moment defines, that to me is the game in a nutshell, where it's this visually and conceptually unique experience that's broken and bent to fit this boring modern AAA video game template. Oh, here's your upgrade tree. Oh, it's a AAA modern video game. We have to have a zip line. We have to have wall running. It's like, even if it looks totally inappropriate for this kind of setting and this kind of serious historical context they're bringing into the game. And what sucks too is that because it is so repetitive, this structure where, especially when you're going to collect the bits of detail about a character's tragic backstory, it just feels like the repetitive nature cheapens the tragedy, because every time I got to a new area and the main character would say something like, "I bet I will learn this person's backstory here," I just went, oh, so I'm going to go to 3 or 4 combat arenas and I'm going to see a detail that it's going to be tragic and attempt to make me feel very sad. And then once I get all these memories, I'm going to be chased by this dumb purple mist monster that doesn't really provide a challenge as far as a chase sequence. It just feels like a giant waste of time. And what's funny is I tested one of these chase sequences and I just walked through it. The game encouraged you to run. It makes this point, oh, there's this big purple mist monster is after you. You better run or the purple mist monster is gonna get you. So I tested it. I tried walking through a chase sequence and the fucking purple mist monster didn't catch me once that whole time. I just walked through it. So it just totally broke the illusion that this thing is worth running away from. That the game gives you plenty of time to get away from this purple mist monster. Even though it's playing this loud, dramatic music and the main character's going, oh, I gotta move, I gotta outrun this thing. No. So let's talk about what I think, besides the shitty combat, is also a huge problem in this game. And it's the way the game is structured around guiding the player and presenting its themes and its ideas to the player. Because I think this game, on both a gameplay perspective and a thematic perspective, treats its player like a child. One small but consistent example of this is that the main character constantly spells out what to do next, even when there's literally one path forward after you do a combat encounter or a boss fight. There was one bit after a cutscene where the only way forward was this giant fucking wind tunnel ahead of me. And the main character says something along the lines of, maybe I should go this way. I think this is the way forward. It's like, no shit, lady. Nah. Really? The giant wind tunnel in front of me is the only way to go in this level? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, thank you for telling me that. I really appreciate it. Even though the game already has a diegetic way of showing where the player to go next, it'll reveal this little path, this spirit path to your next objective. And it will play this little voice thing where these spirit voices are going, Hazel, Hazel, calling to you. It's diegetic. So it's already there. You already have a system in place. If the player wants to see the next way forward, you can see it. But the game doesn't trust you enough to do it. So instead, on top of that, it has Hazel going, there's this giant wind tunnel in front of me. Maybe I should go this way. It's like, come on. Another annoying example of this is whenever you have to use Hazel's doll named Crouton that you can summon to help you solve puzzles and explore animal burrows for upgrade currency. It felt like every single time I reached a puzzle or a burrow, the game would flash the tutorial on screen for how to summon Crouton. And sometimes not only would it do that, but Hazel would also speak a line along the lines of, I think I can summon Crouton here. It's like, guys, I don't suffer from interrograde amnesia. I can process memories like that happened a few minutes ago. I know I did this already 3 times in this level. I know how to do this. Stop reminding me how to do this. It's annoying. This also extends to the game's story, which this game just constantly tells you how to feel or what to think, even when it doesn't need to. Like, there's one example where Hazel, she'll often deliver these lines after story moments or combat encounters, or whenever you look at an item to explain things that should be self-evident, or to give her opinion on something that is in the environment. So as an example, there's one level where you're exploring this beached houseboat from the Jim Crow era, and there's this sign on the ship with very clear implications about the racial relations on that ship. So instead of letting the horror of seeing something like that speak for itself, Hazel has to make a quip about it. Something along the lines of, oh, that was so bad what they did back then. The class system and the racial system was so bad back then. It's like, thank you. Thank you. I did not know that while looking at this. Thank you for spelling it out for me, Hazel. I never would have figured that out from looking at this sign. And for a game that it invokes these incredibly dark themes like slavery, racism, poverty, child abuse, child murder, but it doesn't do anything meaningful with them. It feels like the developers are afraid to say anything more beyond, this exists, and it's bad. If it brings up a topic like slavery or racism, you just have the game present it and go, this exists, and it's bad, without offering anything deep or insightful. I was even disappointed with the way it tries to connect it to Southern mythology, because again, it doesn't say anything meaningful about it. It just says, here it is. Please applaud that we included it. It's like, thank you. Thank you, Compulsion. I learned this in elementary school. Do you have anything else to say that I didn't get when I was in elementary school and I understood this back then? That racism was bad, that slavery was bad, that poverty is bad? And this story just is so underwhelming and laughably written at times. So I'm going to give a slight spoiler for this, so I'll be as vague as I can. There's a moment where you encounter this really suspicious character that you see her tragic backstory for. And all the alarm bells are going off in my head that, oh, this person is bad. This person is doing bad things because of the tragic backstory that's attached to them. And the main character trusts them for some reason, decides to go along with their plan to do something. So later on, when the script is flipped against the main character and she goes, you used me? Oh my God, I was rolling my eyes hard because I could figure out what was going on hours ago. And yet the game treated it like some big twist, some big revelation that this super suspicious character, guess fucking what, was bad and doing bad shit. I got it. Thank you, game. And then I just think this game also cops out big time with the theme, one of the themes that it has of learning to deal with death and tragedy. I mean, throughout its runtime, this game makes a massive deal thematically about how to learn how to properly grieve and learn to accept tragic events to build a better future for yourselves, so we don't succumb to the bitterness and false hope that comes from holding on to the past for so long. But the final hour of this game just completely undercuts that message, because it gives the main character an easy way out. Because they probably did not want the player to feel bad. They didn't want the game to end on a realistic, like negative but realistic note. And this comparison, I know some people are gonna roll their eyes when I make this comparison, but I promise this is what I was thinking of during the game when I was playing South of Midnight. Compare how South of Midnight treats its player, both gameplay-wise and thematically, to Kingdom Hearts 1. Especially in levels like Deep Jungle or Monstra, or especially during the ending, where Sora doesn't have any stupid lines that tell the player where to go next. The game respects you enough to try to figure out, gives you the freedom and the space to figure out where you need to go next, how to solve this puzzle. What do I do in Wonderland with these various things around me? How do I reach the gorillas in Deep Jungle? How do I get out of this maze known as Monstro? And the game lets you figure it out on your own. Gives you clues on how to do it. It doesn't spell it out for you like South of Midnight does. It doesn't baby you. And story-wise, Kingdom Hearts 1, it doesn't end on a happy note, where everyone is reunited and they all go back home to Destiny Islands and they live happily ever after and they have a fucking beach party with a barbecue. No! Riku chooses to sacrifice himself by staying in the Realm of Darkness to help Sora. Sora and Kairi are separated and don't see each other for what ends up being a year. Kingdom Hearts, a game with a family-friendly world that treats its audience, its young players, again, family-friendly, that it's designed to be going for, treats them with respect and allows them to work out puzzles and navigation by themselves and doesn't sugarcoat the dark themes that it has in the game, doesn't spoon-feed them the happy ending that they might want. Leaves them with a little bit of a lump in their stomach, wondering what's going to happen next. Versus South of Midnight. An M-rated game that touches on really dark and serious subject matter, that treats its intended adult players like idiots and children by signaling to them in big, bold letters what to think, where to go, how to feel, how to interpret various environmental details. Just no respect for that, the player is an adult, a thinking, breathing, functioning adult. It thinks this is your first time playing a video game or encountering this kind of historical context. In conclusion, this is the third game in a row from Compulsion where their game design just utterly fails the imaginative and unique ideas and images they bring to the table. Contrast, We Happy Few, South of Midnight. There is a clear pattern with Compulsion, and I will never understand why Microsoft brought these guys under their umbrella, unless it was to provide nebulous first-party content for Game Pass, and they got Compulsion for cheap. And South of Midnight, to me, it represents the worst kind of game for me, because it represents imagination and potential just being completely tainted and wasted. It's like this gorgeous art being painted on a porta potty that smells. It's just such a shame. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about South of Midnight if you played it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I'm Razorblade Mango. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.